Guys, I'm really delighted to welcome back to the podcast someone who's a real, heroine to me. And this is a young woman named Yeonmi Park. She's a North Korean defector. She escaped as a refugee from North Korea. She fell victim, and her family did, to sex trafficking in China. They escaped to South Korea by walking across the Gobi Desert. Somehow she made her way to America. She's now a U.S. citizen. She graduated from Columbia University. She wrote a marvelous book called In Order to Live, A North Korean Girl's Journey to Freedom. And now her new book, which I just finished, a great book, it's called While Time Remains. If you think about it, a little bit of a haunting title. Yeonmi, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you. Let me start with the title of your book, While Time Remains, because I think it contains a little bit of an ominous warning, namely that, hey, America, I've come here. I see a free society, but I see a free society moving in the wrong direction. You better get your act together while time remains. Is that the message of your book, or how would you put it?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what I meant. When I came to America, as you can see in my book title, a North Korean defector searched for freedom in America. I thought I was coming to the land of the free and home of the brave. And I was landed on the university. And you would think that America was an ideal, marketplaces where we can think for free. In North Korea, thought crime was real. The most dangerous thing that I had on my body was my tongue. My mom told me not to whisper because the birds and mice could hear me. And now, in the university, the professors would shut ideas down because in the name of having a safe space, in the name of not offending people's feelings, they were shutting down all the ideas, and only one idea, that is political correctness.
So you found when you were at Columbia that, weirdly, you're in a place dedicated to the free exchange of ideas, but in a way reminiscent of North Korea, there's an official ideology. It's no less ruthlessly enforced than it is in North Korea. Maybe in North Korea, it's being enforced by the government, but it seems to me here it's being enforced by private institutions and by the government. Would you agree?
Yeah, is really less obvious because in North Korea, everything is in charge by the regime. In America, actually, I know you're the movie maker. And when one of the producers in Hollywood was trying to make a movie about my first book, and I got a script from the producer, and I was reading the script. It says somehow China was my promised land. Chinese authorities were helping me and gave me refuge and protecting me. I literally called him up, like, what are you talking about? And he said, this is the only way we can make movie about North Korea in the current Hollywood. As I'm not gonna make that movie, but that's when I realized our institutions, education, media, all the big tech got hijacked by Chinese Communist Party. Their policies are heavily, enforcing the idea, glorifying almost CCP. You read the book, I was demonetized on YouTube, making videos about how North Korean modern-day slaves are existing under Chinese Communist Party, and how I was being sold as a sex slave in China. And those videos were getting demonetized and get censored.
I mean, Yeonmi, let's take stock of this because of how insane it is, right? We all know, I've talked on the podcast about there are certain topics on YouTube where even in their guidelines, they admit that they're doing censorship. They talk about COVID, they talk about election, questioning the election, they talk about the trans issue. But here you're describing your own firsthand experience. With regard to escaping from North Korea, with regard to China, and then you're making a critique of Chinese policy. You're not talking at this point about COVID, you're not talking about the US election of 2020, and you're saying they still demonetized you on YouTube.
The irony is that I was actually making these videos during the time of Me Too and BLM protests, right? They were denouncing slavery in America all day long. They were denouncing that any discrimination is all wrong, and they keep saying that silence is violence. So I was using my voice to speak for the voiceless. And of course, when you talk about wrong slavery, when you talk about wrong injustice, that's when they go against and then shut you down. So the hypocrisy of the American elite and these institutions, and they are indoctrinating American minds in university and public schools that I'm realizing raising my son in this country right now.
I mean, what makes this is it's not merely the fact that it's the wrong kind of injustice, but I mean, look at the scale of it. You know, you have people who say things like, well, in the university, so-and-so made an inappropriate sexual suggestion to me, and that's a form of sexual violence. I mean, having read your earlier book, you describe in fairly riveting detail that what you and your mom, the kind of things that you went through are almost indescribable on a podcast. And so you're talking about horrific things done against women, something that not only happened in the past, but is, I'm assumed to some degree, going on today. And that is nevertheless, it doesn't fit the narrative. And so they're trying to shut it down. And this is YouTube, which is, by the way, owned by Google. So the most powerful organizations in our culture are now on the side of this censorship regime. So you must find this a little terrifying and a little creepy to have come to experience this and experienced it here.
Yeah, the tactics that current American left using is exactly what happened to North Korean people. They would literally divide people based on what their ancestors did. And currently, Americans are divided by the skin color. They decided who is oppressor, who is oppressed. In North Korea, they divided North Korea into 51 different classes based on what my great-grandfather did. If he was a landowner, they say, my genetics is oppressive. My blood is tainted. Therefore, that I'm in the lower class. Now in America, my son, who's half white, now he's privileged. He has an oppressor blood because supposedly he's a great, I don't know how many generations of might have a genetic, but he doesn't. His parents were from Ireland, fleeing the potato famine. They didn't have a slave. They were like working class people. And using this kind of race to making people divided, this is exactly what the Communist Party did in North Korea.
Let's take a pause, Yeonmi. When we come back, I want to talk to you about the peculiar reaction that you get from progressive liberals when you talk to them about your story. And I also want to talk about a specific incident that happened to you in the Chicago area.